Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to What's on the Playlist today. So, I'm having a hard time finding albums to do reviews on, not because I'm running out of albums, but because I'm having a hard time keeping track of what I've already reviewed before. Anywho, today I'm going to talk about the Boomtown Rats, The Fine Art of Surfacing, an image of which you will see here. The Boomtown Rats was an Irish band formed in 1975, thereabouts. Initially, they were a punk rock band that kind of moved more into, they're categorized as like new wave and pop, but based on the contents of this album, they don't really match that either. They kind of have a unique sound, or somewhat unique. They kind of remind me, they've been said to be reminiscent of the GEEXX, which is another band that kind of falls in that new wave pop category, but really doesn't quite fit it either. This is their third album. It's the only one of their albums that I own. And was probably their biggest success. In the UK, it reached #1. In the US, I don't think it even broke the top 100, which surprises me. The big single from this album, I Don't Like Mondays, again, hit #1 in UK charts. It barely broke the top 100 in the US. I think it hit 73 in the US. It topped out at that. The front man for the band, Bob Geldof, wrote this song after hearing about a school shooting. There was a 16-year-old girl who shot up an elementary school. And when people asked her why she had done it, she just responded, "I don't like Mondays." And when Bob Geldof heard about it, he's like, "This was just the most nonsensical reason for doing such a nonsensical thing." It seemed like the perfect response, and he just kind of flipped a switch in his head, and he kind of wrote the song out. He wasn't trying to take advantage of the tragedy. It was just, he said it was just something that like popped into his head. The lyrics kind of popped into his head about, the silicon switch inside her head switched to overload. And he kind of wrote the song from there. Kind of sad that such a senseless tragedy inspired him to write the song. But it was their biggest success. They had some minor songs in the UK, some minor success in the UK with their previous two albums. Their follow-up album to this, I think, had one other song that was mildly successful, but this, The Fine Art of Surfacing, was their biggest commercial success. And a couple other songs, but charted on this album, mostly in the UK. Diamond Smiles and was it Someone's Looking at You? I think so. I seem to recall also hearing Nothing Happened Today, but I was doing some research on this album, and I mentioned earlier that I was surprised it didn't do well in the US. And I think one of the reasons I was surprised it didn't do well is that I recall hearing this album a lot. But I also think one of the benefits of the times, especially in a state like Maine, is that there were not a lot of heavily commercial radio stations at the time. You still had independent radio stations who had a bunch of potheads who could play whatever the hell they wanted to. So because of that, I might have been exposed to music a bit differently than the rest of mainstream America. Because I heard these songs a lot, not just, the few that I've mentioned that were released as singles, but pretty much half the songs on this album. Someone's Looking at You, Diamond Smiles, I Don't Like Mondays. But I mean, this album got a lot of play. And it was popular with the people that I hung out with. I would see this album in their houses. It's also one of those things that, like, as a young man, I had a hard time remembering band names, and I would be like, I'd hear a song and say, "Oh man, I like that song. Who's the band that?" I was like, They would say, "I've already told you 5 times. I'm not telling you again. Remember it on your own." So I was kind of notorious for forgetting the names of bands and not being able to tie them to certain artists. being able to tie the artists to their songs. So I kind of bought this on a whim, you know. I've mentioned it with Boston and with Beastie Boys' License Still being some of the oldest albums, oldest CDs that I owned. This is on that list as well. I bought this in the same year as those two. And again, bought it on a whim just because I remembered the name. You know, and when I got it and realized Don't Like Mondays was on here, I was like, man, I love this song. I'm so glad I bought the album. And then I listened to it obsessively. It helped that I only had about 10 CDs at the time to play on my CD player. They got a lot of rotation. Sorry about this. I ate lunch before this and I have a little bit of a phlegm in my throat from lunch. So sorry if I'm clearing my throat a bit. But I just recall, you know, all these albums, all these songs. Just being on constant play all the time. And again, hearing them on the album, hearing them on the radio, sorry, hearing these songs on the radio, a lot more than perhaps their success warranted. And because I knew these songs so well, it always surprises me to find out that they were not that popular in the United States. I think this album has become more of a cult classic just because the album itself, the Boomtown Rats, and Bob Geldof became known as a figure for things he did after the band broke up or things he did outside the band. He formed Live Aid, the concert Live Aid. He performed in Pink Floyd's movie The Wall, which was the sort of film adaptation of the album. It was basically a series of music videos that told the story of the album, and Bob Geldof played Pinky, the lead character in that film. So as an individual, Bob Geldof, I think is better known than the band itself. Kind of a shame. He is talented, but you know, the band was just on fire with this album. This was a really solid piece of music that came out of the late 70s, early 80s. And I think they broke up. Not sure exactly when they broke up. I know that this is the third album. They put out a total of 5. So I think they were active between 1975 and like late 1980s. And they reformed in 2020 to do some other works. They put out a new album in 2020. In regards to this album, it's specifically, I did learn there's a 2005 remastered version. They re-released it with an additional 4 or 5 tracks. Most of those were B-sides of singles with an additional live version of a song from another album. I may have to look that up. I do like B-sides. B-sides tend to be unique and interesting alternatives to the albums themselves. So I really, really like this album. I've had this album for close to 40 years now. Damn, it's a long time to own any piece of music. But anywho, I really like it. I would highly recommend The Fine Art of Surfing by the Boomtown Rats. Definitely an A+ piece of material in my opinion. But what the hell do I know? As always, thanks for watching. As always, my stuff is crap. And until next time, good hunting.